WNBA star Brittney Griner has pleaded guilty to drug charges in Russia. It is a story that we brought to you as breaking news yesterday on 9 News Mornings. Our 9 News legal analyst Whitney Traylor is joining us now to talk more about this case. Thank you for coming in.
Sure, it's good to be here.
You know I love that bow tie.
Oh, thank you.
So let's go back. What led up to her arrest?
Right, so it's really interesting. She was over there playing, she plays during the off season on a Russian team, and so she had during the as she arrived in the country, she had a little oil, I guess hash oil, and so they
for a vape pen or whatever.
For a vape pen,
okay.
exactly right. That was illegal, and so they actually detained her, and they've charged her now with large-scale transportation of drugs, even though it was less than a gram. And there was no pen, there was nothing else. It was just the oil that she said then she accidentally, you know, she was rushing as she packed, and it wasn't, there was no intent to bring it in, is what she argued.
What's the potential sentence for that in Russia?
It's up to 10 years. And so she's been there since February. So she's already been detained for 5 months, and they just started her trial, and they had one day, and now it's scheduled again for maybe 10 days from now. And so the trial itself may take weeks and possibly even months, because they don't do it just day after day like we do here.
Russian law is so interesting. Now, I know a lot of people were saying, you know, that this was planted, this isn't really what happened. So she did plead guilty, saying that she did have this, again, a small amount. But is this part of the strategy? Right,
because she wasn't pleading guilty, and so this was really her first opportunity to address the court. And apparently the strategy is to say, you know, that there was no intent to actually acknowledge that, to sort of grease the wheels for the judge potentially later, because in Russia the acquittal rate is less than 1%. So the chances of an acquittal are very nominal. And so I think what they're also trying to do is set this up for a potential political prisoner swap or something else. So that's why I think they pled guilty, and it was a strategy.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because there is this conversation about a prisoner swap. And a lot of people are pushing for President Biden to even get more involved in this. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, it's interesting because President Biden did just get involved, and she actually wrote this handwritten letter to the president that got to him. He wrote back. Him and Kamala Harris have been talking to Brittney Griner's wife, and they're starting to get involved. But the discussion about the prisoner swap is for a potential prisoner here in the States, Victor Bout, who's serving a 25-year sentence for arms dealing. And so there's a lot of people saying this isn't comparable. This is a 1 gram thing, and now you have they call him the minister of murder.
It's not a fair swap.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And then other people are saying, well, we have Marine Paul Whelan over in Russia as well. Why isn't that being more pronounced? And then people are pointing out the disparities as it even relates to the professional sports, and saying, look, if this was Tom Brady or LeBron James, you know, all hell would be breaking loose over here to try and get them out.
Because it said she's a WNBA star. Okay. So by her pleading guilty, I'm sure, what does that look like in terms of like a prison sentence if she's convicted and it's in Russia? Do we even know?
We don't know. It could be up to 10 years, and that was the idea, was that pleading guilty, there would be some mercy on her from the judge. So the prosecution is in the middle of presenting its case. We don't know what her actual defense is going to be. Maybe it's going to be this notion that there was no intent to break the law to come into Russia. And so they're saying that, and it's interesting because a lot of this is also related to the political and the diplomacy aspects, because some people are saying, well, this is from Vladimir Putin detaining her a week before the war in Ukraine.
Right.
So there's all these other variables, and it looks like it's going to be a political thing. And Russia said, we're not even going to discuss a swap until the trial is over. And so if she gets convicted, then that will be, you know, part of the discussions about trying to get her released.
So again, she did plead guilty. She said, let me get my, you know, stuff in order to be able to tell people a little bit more about what happened. And I think that's happening next week, is another process of this, right?
That's exactly right. There's another hearing next week. And so even though she pled guilty, it's not like over here where you plead guilty and then you go to the sentencing phase. She's saying, yes, I admitted this, I did it, but I didn't have intent. And so I think that was really more, not necessarily for the trial, partly for the trial, because they're saying, look, The Russians are saying the U.S. involvement, President Biden and all these people are exacerbating it and making it political. And the Russians, because their judicial system looks very weak and unfair. And so that's all, part of the discussions in terms of the diplomacy and things like that.
Well, we'll see what happens. I have a feeling we'll chat with you more about this in the coming weeks.
Happy to be here.
Whitney, thank you. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.